What's up, everybody? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well today. Again, it is schedule release day, so there are some fun things going on later. I'm going to have a nice little stream over on the Bleacher Report talking about the Seahawks schedule when it hits tonight at 5. Again, I'm doing everything I can to not look at schedule updates, so I know as little as possible when the actual full thing gets released tonight. So hopefully that continues. Stream on Bleacher Report's going to be in about 5 hours. I'll probably post a video talking about the schedule here on YouTube in about 6 hours, if I had to guess. So there's going to be plenty of discussion concerning that. Keep an eye out. But this video is not about any of that. This video is about something that was announced yesterday. I could have made a video about it, but I really wanted yesterday to be all about the Jalen Milroe videos. So I decided to go ahead and put this on ice until today, but this does merit some discussion because it certainly has even an indirect effect on the Seahawks, but it has an indirect effect on the Seahawks at the highest possible level. I'm talking about the ownership. I'm talking about the estate of the former great Paul Allen. And basically, we got an interesting update yesterday that formalizes and kind of makes official something that we have known was in the works for a little while now. And while the Seahawks are not yet directly affected, it's hard to come to any conclusion other than we're going to start to see the pieces move in the coming years. And this is just kind of like the first domino. So yesterday, the Portland Trailblazers official X account put this out. This was also reported in many other locations. The estate of Paul G. Allen today announced it has commenced a formal sales process for the Portland Trailblazers NBA franchise, consistent with Allen's directive to eventually sell his sports holdings and direct all estate proceeds to philanthropy. So the short version is the Trailblazers are going to be sold. And this is something that Blazers fans have been anticipating with great desire for a little while now. I think ever since Jody Allen took over that team, there was some desire to see the team sold to somebody who would own it more permanently and maybe be a little bit more hands-on. And they're pretty happy right now. I'm not a Trailblazers fan, but I certainly know Trailblazers fans. They're very hopeful that this process goes well for them. So if you get down to the bottom of this statement, it is actually addressing the part of this that we care about as Seahawks fans at the very bottom. This news does not affect the Seattle Seahawks NFL franchise or the estate's 25% interest in the Seattle Sounders MLS, and neither is for sale. So as of right now, this has not changed. And Corbin Smith tweeted about this yesterday, notes Seahawks are not for sale, and they are currently not. This is just about the Trailblazers for the moment. And for the moment, I think we should all move forward under the assumption that Jody Allen is the Seahawks owner and will be the Seahawks owner for at least a few more seasons. However, this does set into motion something that we've talked about on this channel before, and something that I think most Seahawks fans are aware of at this point, which is that, quite simply, this will happen. There's not much of a way around it. Paul Allen's will dictated that his sports holdings would be sold after his passing. Now, whether or not there's any kind of a time limit or there's any kind of a time frame on selling those teams is less clear. Seems like there was a relatively vague statement of when this had to happen. So that's why you see the Paul Allen estate continue to hold on to these teams for years after his passing. That's why you continue to see this estate maintain control of the Seahawks even as they're starting the process of selling the Trailblazers. But it is going to happen because that's the way Paul Allen wanted it. So while, and let me be very clear about this, we are probably years away from anything happening. This is going to happen. Now, why would the Paul Allen estate seek to sell the Trailblazers now and hold on to the Seahawks and to be sold later. Not clear. It's not entirely clear. My understanding is that the NBA is not doing well right now. The NBA is the one major American sports league that is losing viewers. The one major sports league that is actually having an issue getting their fan base engaged with things. So maybe this is just a simple matter of let's sell now before things get even worse. Because the Blazers have obviously been a pretty bad team for a few years now. They traded one of their all-time great franchise players a couple of years ago. It was a good trade, don't get me wrong. They're coming out on the top end of that trade. They're very happy with the way that trade has worked. But it has put them in a place where they are bad. And it's unclear if they're going to be good anytime soon. They're a small market team that struggles to attract primo free agent talent. They're a team that has not won a championship in my lifetime and even extending a little beyond that. So they're not exactly a primo piece of sports team ownership out there. And with the way the league is headed, and by the way, the league is already struggling, and in the next couple of years, they're going to lose their two biggest stars in LeBron and Curry. Both those guys are going to retire in the very near future. And what happens then? Does the league get even less popular? Does the league struggle even more? It's very possible. So maybe they're just saying, okay, in the case of the Blazers, we got to get out now. The team isn't good. The team probably won't be good for a while. And we're just trying to get our money while we can. And in the case of the Seahawks, the NFL is continuing to grow. The salary cap goes up every year. People's interest in the sport continues to go up and up. Now, that can change, and I do think there are some concerning signs for the popularity of this league, but overall, right now, the league is in good shape, and I can see the NFL teams growing in value just by existing over the next several years. So maybe the thought process is, let's milk this a little bit. Let's hold on to the Seahawks, maximize our value, because remember, there was that whole clause in the contract where they would have to give money back to the city if the team was sold within the first 25 years of Paul Allen owning it. And that 25-year period has passed. That should not be a consideration anymore. So theoretically, they could sell it and keep all the money. Remember, there was that thing where they would have to give like 10% of the proceeds to the city of Seattle if they sold before. That time window should have passed last year. So it's not about that. I think this is just about, hey, we could get a lot more money for this team if we just waited and if we got the team into a good spot for future ownership. Like right now, the Seahawks team has been in a little bit of a rut. I don't think it's as bad as the way some people put it, but this team has won 7, 9, 9, and then 10 games over the last 4 seasons. This team has not won a playoff game in 5 years. Last time they won a playoff game was the 2019 season. So there is definitely some stuff going on with this Seahawks team that is hurting the value. Not radically, maybe, because when you look at a team like the Broncos that sold for an obscene amount of money, they sold to the Walton Penner group at a time where they had not even made the playoffs. They had not had, I believe, even a winning record in an extended period of time, but they still went for a ton of money. So it's not necessarily the end of the world, but I can see the ownership saying, let's get into a better spot first. For as much as the team was a 10-win team last year, there were problems with attendance. There was a much publicized struggle for the Seahawks to get their own fans in the stadium for their home games. They had a big game against the Green Bay Packers last year on primetime football, and half the stadium was Packers fans. Maybe they don't want to try to sell the team right after something like that. Maybe they want to try to get a team that actually gets to the playoffs, wins the division, wins a playoff game, and can actually sell the team on the merits of their coaching staff and their roster. Because that's another part of this too. You pull in a new owner, that new owner might want to build his own squad. He might say, look, no disrespect to Mike McDonald, I want my own coach. No disrespect to the really good players on this team. I don't want to win a Super Bowl and then have everybody tell me, oh, you won with the previous person's team. It doesn't count. You didn't do anything. So I want to trade my good players for draft picks so I can get my guys. Going to be a little bit harder to do if the team is actually having objective, clear success. So maybe there's a desire to actually build that legitimate contender before they sell. And that's certainly understandable. It can't be a bad thing. You get more money for that, I think. Unless you are selling to somebody who genuinely just wants a clean slate he can completely wipe away without worrying about anybody being upset about it. So that is probably what's going on here. Again, I want to stress this isn't happening right now, but it clearly will happen. And I'm cool with it. I will say I don't think Jody Allen has been a bad owner at all. I think that Jody Allen, in her time acting as the owner of this team, I don't think it's as good as what Paul Allen would have done. And if there are financial limitations on what this team can do right now because the selling process is coming, then that's very unfortunate. But that isn't really an indictment on Jody so much as it is an indictment on the fact that the team is being sold at all. And that's not Jody Allen's fault. That's because Paul Allen wanted it that way. But overall, I think she's done a good job. Yes, maybe she should have let Pete Carroll go a couple years earlier than she did. But she did eventually let him go, which could not have been easy. And she bid very high to make sure she could secure the services of Mike Macdonald. And overall, while the team hasn't been what we want them to be, and while I do think Paul Allen was a much better owner, I think Jody did her thing. She didn't get involved in any really nasty controversies during her time here. And for the most part, she allowed the football people on this team to run the team. I mean, how many absentee owners would have allowed the Russell Wilson trade to go through? Probably not that many. I can imagine a lot of absentee owners would have gone, you can't trade Russell Wilson. That's our franchise player. That's our meal ticket. I want to make money. I don't want to have to drop ticket sale prices because we traded our quarterback. No, you have to keep Russell Wilson. But she didn't do that. And look how well that worked out for us. It was one of the great trades in NFL history. So I think she deserves some real credit for allowing that to happen. I think she deserves credit for firing Pete Carroll when she did. Again, I would have done it a little bit earlier, but I think there are some situations where an owner in that spot would have been like, we're not even going to consider it. So, hey, credit where credit is due, man. I think she did a good job. I think she's been a good owner. But right now, there is at least some reason to believe that her kind of unclear future running this team is having a negative effect on things. If it is true, and we have no way of knowing this, if it is true, and it's at least a decent theory, that this team is unable to spend long-term money on big contracts because Jody wants to sell, then, I mean, something needs to happen to get that, to get that influence out of here, period. We're not going to be able to compete with other teams if we can't offer long-term deals. All right. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. So, Blazers getting sold. Seahawks not yet, but in the next few years, we will probably be told it's on. All right. Go Hawks. Schedule react tonight. Let me know what you think.